How are you all doing today? You're doing all right? All right. You're ready to talk about diverticulitis? Yes. Has any here have had diverticulitis before? Oh, pretty much everyone. All right. So I assume that's why you're all here, right? All right. So I usually like to start explaining from the very basics, what diverticulitis is and what to expect and how things work, okay? But to be able to understand that, we need to understand a little bit of how our system works, okay? I'm actually left-handed, but if you all see not being able to write with this one, so I'm going to make pictures with my right, okay? If you can't understand my picture, let me know. So the way our system works is we have our esophagus, which is the one that carries the food from the mouth into the stomach. Then we have pretty much the stomach, and then we have the small intestine. So you swallow the food, the stomach is the one who is in charge of mixing the food. The small intestine is the one in charge of absorbing all the nutrients of the food into our system, okay? The small intestine goes into the large intestine. And this is the large intestine. The large intestine is the one who is in charge of taking the water off what's left from what we digested to help us keep hydrated. Whatever is left, it comes out down south. All right? So the disease of diverticulitis, it actually happens in the colon. So the colon, which is the one that absorbs the water, is the one that can get diverticulitis. The colon, pretty much, you have the bottom of the colon. Then we have a part of the colon called the sigmoid colon. And then it goes to the left. And then it joins the small intestine over here. Okay? So that is the colon. So pretty much comes from the bottom to the left, up on the left, across, and down. And this little thing here is the appendix, which hangs off the colon. Diverticulums are little out pouches that happen in the colon, kind of like that. Can you all see what I'm doing? Okay, little out pouches. I mean, it looks like little blisters that happen on the colon. It can happen pretty much anywhere throughout the entire intestine. The most common area to have diverticulums is right here, okay? Now, when those happen, it happens when the pressure inside the colon is too much. What is going to create that pressure? The main thing is going to be constipation. So people that are chronically constipated, I have patients that come to me and I ask them, okay, how many times a week do you have a bowel movement? And the answer is, well, lucky if I have it once every 2 weeks. So that is a real problem. So one of the things that gives you diverticulums, which are these out pouches that happen in the colon, is severe constipation. Your colon is trying to push the stool out and is creating a large amount of pressure over here. And that pressure can create those little out pouches, okay? The out pouches of the colon are not as thick as the colon wall, which means that they can perforate more easily. So when a patient is having an increased amount of pressure over here, and one of these perforates, that's what we call diverticulitis, okay? So when you get a colonoscopy done and the doctor comes out and says, you have diverticulums, that's what he means by diverticulums, that you have all those out pouches over there. Having diverticulums is what puts you at a risk of developing diverticulitis. Diverticulitis is actually a perforation of the colon, meaning one of these diverticulums got a hole, and that means that it's leaking something that is creating an infection, and that infection is what we call diverticulitis. Are we all on the same page? Does it help you understand better what happens? Okay. So once this perforation is created, the perforation can have different sizes. It can be very, very, very small, to the point that only leaks a little bit of bacteria. So what happens is that at that moment, the patient starts developing some usually left lower quadrant pain or suprapubic pain, meaning lower part of your belly. You don't feel well. You may have a fever. You either go to your primary care doctor, come to the ER. they tell you have diverticulitis, you get antibiotics, and you go home. That can happen only when the perforation is so small that you did not leak anything but a little bacteria. It can go from that to being a little bit bigger, that you leak bacteria and air. It can be even bigger where you leak a little bit of a stool, or it can be even bigger where there's just a stool running around your belly. The last two, the ones that you have large amount of stool running around your belly, or you have a large amount of leakage without having a stool all over, those two are true emergencies. So how do we treat diverticulitis? Everything depends on what problem is presented at that time. Okay? If someone comes, let's say, comes to the ER, you get diagnosed with diverticulitis, it's not an emergency, they send you home with antibiotics, it doesn't get better, so you end up coming back to the ER. The treatment is to put you in the hospital with IV antibiotics, right? IV antibiotics are more effective than taking them by mouth. Most of the time, that will make diverticulitis better, and we can move on. From then, if you have diverticulitis that is not responding to the antibiotics, some people will develop fluid collections that can happen, either where the perforation happened or down on the pelvis, meaning that bacteria that was here leaked down here. Those fluid collections, something that we call abscesses. Has anybody had diverticulitis with an abscess here? Okay, so once the person has an abscess, that means that we gotta help our body heal this, because our body and the antibiotics alone are not solving the problem. So there are several ways to approach it. What we do now is we try to put a drain from the outside, meaning we put a needle, we access where the abscess is, and put a drain over there to help drain it. Okay? Either there or the one at the bottom. The other way diverticulitis can be treated is, let's say the patient didn't present with an abscess, but it has a ton of different, has a lot of air throughout the entire area, and on top of having air, it has a bad infection. At that point, means that the perforation probably is big enough that actually leaked a lot of stool in there. At that point, what we need to do is the hole is so big that it's not going to seal on its own. So what we have to do is we have to take the part of the colon that has the problem out. So we have to cut over here and cut over here and take all this part out. If we can see all the way to where the diverticulums are, we'll take everything out. But what is the big problem of having to have surgery in the face of acute diverticulitis? The bad problem is that we cannot put these two ends together. In the face of infection, when we put those two ends together, they will tend to break apart. So the safest thing to do, and everything depends on what is found during the surgery. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But as a general rule, if you have a large amount of pus in there or a large amount of infection in there, we can put those two ends together. So what we gotta do is what I cut it there, take this piece out and bring this out as something that we call a colostomy. So that end is gonna be out on the skin with a bag, and that's when people get a colostomy bag. And this end over here ends up just being shut, so nothing goes through here and allows all the infection that was there to heal. Okay? Those colostomies are not colostomies that are permanent. We just got to allow the body to heal, allow the infection to go away, and then we can put these two ends together again. Okay? So that's the general treatment for diverticulitis. So diverticulitis by itself is a really bad disease. It's a really bad problem to have. So what is the best way to treat diverticulitis? Is prevent you from having diverticulitis. What is the main thing that you can do? Is avoid constipation. Okay? So how do you avoid constipation? If the colon is the organ that wants to make sure that you're not getting dehydrated, what do you need to do to avoid diverticulitis? Drink more water. Make sure you have bowel movements all the time. How much water should you drink? Does anybody know the actual number of ounces that we should be drinking? Between 64 and 80 ounces of water. Now, here's the important thing to understand. 64 ounces may be perfectly fine for me, right? but it may not be not even close to what he needs. He may need 100 plus ounces. So how do we know how much water we need to drink? It's based on how our body responds, okay? So if you're still drinking water, you think you're drinking enough, but you still have severe constipation, then you got to make sure you either increase the amount of liquid that you're taking, or you actually go to your primary care doctor to tell them the problem that you're having, okay? I hear a lot from patients saying, I don't want to take a laxative because I don't want my colon to get used to having a laxative to be able to have a bowel movement. But if you're not having a bowel movement anyway, you're already there. Make sense what I'm saying? It's much better to do something to be able to have a bowel movement than not to have one and end up in a complication like diverticulitis. Okay? Diverticulitis is very common. We see it all the time in the hospital. This type of diverticulitis, which I'm telling you that requires a major surgery, that one, thank God, it doesn't happen very often. The problem with this type of diverticulitis, that you can imagine having a stool running around on your belly, is very dangerous and creates, a lot of the times, creates an infection that our body cannot overcome, and end up, we end up dying out of an infection like this.
Hi, I'm Jeff Cannon, President of Citizens Bank of Lawrence County. If you're presently a customer of ours, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to be your bank. We appreciate the confidence you have placed in us and enjoy providing you with the most up-to-date banking products and services to satisfy your needs. If you're not a current customer, we would like to invite you to stop by and let us show you true community banking at its best. We concentrate on our local community, doing our part to make Dublin and Lawrence County a better place to live, work, play, and retire. We recently introduced 2 new products, eStatements and Access Now, our mobile banking app. Both of these products will help to make banking with us more convenient and will also help to provide you with a safer and more secure banking experience. So for all your banking needs, just give us a call or stop by and let us show you personal banking at its best. Citizens Bank of Lawrence County, member FDIC, and an equal housing lender.
You put your mower through a lot. All that back and forth on all those acres can add up to thousands of miles. That's like mowing cross country. It's a lot to ask of a mower. Gravely commercial mowers are built for all-day performance, helping you get the job done season after season, and ergonomically designed to keep you comfortable mile after mile. Gravely, built to mow the distance. Available exclusively at independent Gravely dealers.
Visit the new location of Myers Equipment and Supply, 301 North Jefferson Street in Dublin.
Anybody has any questions?
How about fiber, eating fiber?
Fiber is very tricky. Fiber is great to increase the bulk of stool, okay? Fiber is something, what is actually going to do the fiber, it increases the bulk of it here and forces your body in the small intestine to dump water into the colon to help things move forward. Fiber works great as long as you drink enough liquids. Because if you take fiber and you don't drink enough liquids, it can actually be worse. So fiber is very important. You have to have fiber in your diet, but you also get to make sure that you drink a lot of water along with that fiber. Okay?
How close is your kidney to that diverticle?
The kidney or the bladder?
The kidney.
Kidneys. So let me make the picture again. So the kidney is an organ that is actually behind the colon. We have 2 kidneys, one on the right and one on the left. Let me make.
Concentrate on the right one.
Concentrate on the right one. Your right kidney probably is right here, behind the colon. So you actually can't see this corner of the kidney. Let's put it this way. Don't take it as an anatomy book. It's kind of like my right-handed drawings. But it's behind the colon on the right side all the way up here. That's where the kidney is. So having kidney surgery is a big surgery. Having colon surgery is a big surgery. And surgery is not to be taken lightly. I have some patients that come to me and say, just get it out. It's not just get it out. I mean, it has a lot of implications along with it. I always like to tell my patients that having surgery is like a train hits you. Your ability to recover from surgery is your body's ability to recover from a train hitting you. We have different sizes train and even pickup trucks. It's different if you get run over by a pickup truck or a train. Getting over kidney surgery, it will be like an 18-wheeler type running over.
My age, they won't even consider that.
Everything depends, because a lot of the times, I mean, I will have to know a lot more on what's going on, but surgery, there are some minimally invasive type of surgery that may be an option for you.
Well, they talked about an ablation. And they're even afraid of that because it's so close to the colon.
So close to the colon. Ablation means that what they are going to do is they're going to go in there and fry the tumor. If the, if the colon is too close, it can fry the colon as well, creating a perforation. And if a perforation of the colon happens, the problem with the perforation of the colon, in a lot of the times we don't know it has happened until the person is very sick. And your body may not be able to overcome that sickness. Okay.
What if you have diverticulitis but you are never constipated?
So diverticulitis most of the times happen with increased pressure over here, but also could be that the wall of your colon is not very thick by itself. So anything that is creating an increased pressure over there will give you diverticulums. Some people can even have diverticulitis and they have chronic diarrhea. But again, it's related to the pressure that happens inside the colon. We're genetically designed, you know, some people are stronger than others. Some colons are thicker and stronger than others. But having diverticulums itself will put you at a risk of having diverticulitis. If you're not constipated, you really got to make sure at that point not to ever get constipated. Because if you're already not constipated, you get constipation, you'll probably end up with diverticulitis. You already had it?
I have diverticulitis, I've never been constipated.
You have diverticulums or diverticulitis?
Diverticulitis.
So you had a perforation, you had to be treated for it?
Yes, 3 times.
Okay, 3 times. So a lot of the times when you are having bouts of diverticulitis that are one after another, sometimes it means that your body was able to contain the infection, but it's never completely healing. Meaning they give you antibiotics, you get much better, things get well. 2 months later, 3 months later, you're back again with diverticulitis. Yeah, or 1 month. That means that the initial event, you may have not had symptoms related to that initial event, but there is a possibility that it didn't completely heal. And if it didn't completely heal, then a treatment needs to be done. And if enough times keeps coming back, that means that that piece of colon that is giving you trouble needs to come out. Having surgery to have your colon removed electively. What's the definition of electively? You're not sick. You're at home, you're feeling well, and we're going to do surgery to prevent you from getting sick. That's what we call elective colon surgery. At that point, we can take that piece of colon out and put these 2 pieces together without having, you know, there was always a risk of a leak, but the chances of a leak are way less. But nonetheless, again, it's not just let's take it out. It does have a lot of implications when a decision to undergo surgery is made. Did it help you understand a little bit better? Okay.
Can the things that you eat, like seeds or nuts or anything, cause you to have diverticulitis?
Mentally makes sense, but there is no data to prove it. Meaning, if I eat seeds and I have those little out pouches, if something gets stuck and create a perforation, it mentally makes sense. But nobody has been able to prove that that's the case. So if you ask me, again, it makes sense. Don't, you know, tomato seeds or corn, it makes sense. But again, there is not science behind it.
So your body's supposed to move every day?
Everybody is a little bit different. I can tell you that ideally you got to move your bowels between 3 or 4 times a week rather than once a week or so on. But everybody's body is a little bit different.
How about like 5 times a day?
5, that's a little too much. That's a little too much. So in the past, what was the definition of constipation and diarrhea was you know, a certain number of bowel movements a day that are liquid. And constipation was a certain number of bowel movements per week that are hard. Right now, the definition has changed a little bit. Constipation equals too hard, diarrhea equals too loose. So departing from that point, everything depends. If you ask me flat out, 5 bowel movements a day, yeah, that's a little too much. So it may be related to what you're eating, or you may have a type of colon that just pushes things quickly. Remember that when we are producing the stool, it starts on what we eat. And your stomach, your small intestine, and your colon are involved. So what are the things that can give you, you know, chronic states of diarrhea? there are books written about it. There are many things that would need to be investigated on why you're having 5 bowel movements a day.
Portions of this program are brought to you by Fairview Park Hospital, a leader in healthcare for Dublin, Lawrence, and surrounding communities, providing specialty services through facilities such as our Sleep Center, Heart Center, and Women's Imaging Center.
The City of Dublin's Natural Gas Department is offering a $1,000 rebate on the purchase of a natural gas, stove, furnace and tank or tankless water heater for new construction homes or if you're remodeling your home. Individual rebates include natural gas tankless, up to $400 rebate and free gas service installation. Natural gas tank, free 40-gallon or $200 rebate on other sizes, free gas service installation. Natural gas furnace, $200 rebate. Natural gas stove, $100 rebate. Natural gas dryer, $100 rebate. Natural gas grill, $100 rebate. Natural gas logs, $100 rebate. Maximum yearly rebate? No maximum. Save now. Save later. Call the City of Dublin Natural Gas at 277-5048.
Okay, how do you know when you get to the point where you need to have surgery, and then what does that look like, and what is it like recovering? What is that?
So when do you know you have to have surgery? That's a decision that gotta be made between you and your physician. You know, there are some guidelines that will orient you or make you think that at that point you need to start thinking about surgery. Meaning if you're getting diverticulitis over and over and over and you can't get over it, then you need to start thinking about surgery. If you are very, very young, you're having perforations because of diverticulitis, that may orient you towards having surgery. At the end of the day, there is specific criteria that your doctor can go over with you to make a decision whether it is time for surgery or not. Now, if you have surgery, what that looks like, again, it depends on your body's ability to recover from the surgery itself, depending on what piece of the colon has been taken out, and depending also how complex the surgery was. In general, the hospital stay would be, you come, you get the surgery done. If everything goes very smooth, you're looking at going home probably in a couple of days, 2 to 3 days. That's how the general thing would be. There are several ways of doing surgery. You have minimally invasive, meaning we don't cut people open anymore. You know, we make cuts about that big. And that's why people tend to recover faster as well. So if you have the ability to have surgery done by little incisions, your recovery time is going to be much quicker. Most of the time, it's going to mean that you're going to be probably up and about that day or the next day. You're going to be feeling much better within a week. And probably you're going to be able to do a lot more within a couple of weeks. And probably no lifting for about a month or so. Again, everything depends on what technique was used for your surgery and how complex the surgery was itself.
I've noticed if I'm under stress, then I've got stomach problems too.
Yes.
And the two are related. I know they are.
Yes. So stress is very related to intestinal function. From developing reflux and gastritis to developing severe diarrhea. So there are some people that undergo stress. You drink water, it makes you go to the bathroom. So there are many, many reasons. Treating diarrhea or treating bowel habit problems is extremely complex because everything has to do, number one, how you train your bowel from when you were a kid to where you are right now. And number two, your emotional state. There are some people that have diarrhea all the time that are so stressed about having diarrhea that the stress ends up giving you diarrhea. Does it make sense what I'm saying? So all of a sudden you find yourself, in circles. You get stressed because you have diarrhea, but if you get diarrhea, if you get stressed, and then you keep going. Yeah. Make sense?
The polyp, does it cause polyps? That's when the polyps come in?
Polyps is a totally different entity. Polyps are growths that happen inside the colon. So this is the outer layer. So think about your intestinal tract as a tube that goes from up here all the way south, right? It has an outside and it has an inside. The outside is where diverticulums happen. So you have an out pouch going outside. Polyps are growths that happen on the inner lining of the colon. There are several types, and each one of them have different meaning.
14 years ago, I had 12 inches of my colon removed because I had diverticulitis.
How long ago?
14.
So you had your surgery open more than likely.
Yes.
Okay.
I had it here at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then in June, I had diverticulitis again for the first time in 14 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had it again in July.
Yes. Yes. So the fact that you had surgery for diverticulitis, that doesn't mean that your entire colon was taken out. That means that the part that was giving you the acute problem was taken out. Taking the entire colon out has a lot of complications that can be a surgery that can significantly modify your life. Why? Because if all of a sudden this part is hooked to this part, all the water that was supposed to be dumped over here and absorbed throughout there is being dumped directly into your rectum or into the toilet, which means that you may have 10, 12, 15 bowel movements a day that are very liquid. So having to have your entire colon taken out is a surgery that creates a lot of life changes, and it's a lot harder to keep hydration when your body is dumping that amount of water. So when you get surgery for diverticulitis, we try to get out everything that we see that could create a problem, but we don't take the entire colon out. As long as you have colon inside, you can develop diverticulitis. And if you have a genetic tendency to develop diverticulitis, then chances are that more than likely at some point in the future, you may have it. Yeah. And it may mean, if you continue to have one after another, it may mean that you need to have surgery again for it.
What causes the polyps?
That is the million-dollar question. Nobody really knows the causes of the polyps. Again, if you really think about it, what we put over here ends up coming down there. So it has to do a lot with what we eat. A very well-known things related to the Western diet and the Eastern diet. People up in China and Japan, they have a lot of stomach cancer and polyps on the stomach. Here on the Western diet, we're in the other end, and it has to do with our diet.
Since 1987, Little House Self-Storage has been serving Dublin and Warner Robins with the best in customer service and the lowest prices anywhere. Any shape, any size, we have it, plus climate control. At Little House Self-Storage, safety and security are our top priority, with TV security, special lighting, wide drives for easy access, and 24-hour-a-day access to the storage facility. We invite all businesses to remember Little House Self-Storage for storing records, chip and cookie routes, or contractors. We can even store your car, motorhome, or airplane. Little House Self-Storage, Moody Road, Warner Robins, and Marion Street in Dublin.
Bailey's Flooring is a proud sponsor of high school football. Count on the team at Bailey's Flooring for quality name brand carpet and flooring with professional installation. Bailey's Flooring has all the latest product innovations and is a proven contractor of commercial and residential customers. And check out the selection of vinyl and carpet in stock at Bailey's Flooring. Call 290-6084.
When you have it and it just quits on its own, what's the chances of it starting back?
So let me see if I understand it. You're asking me, if you had diverticulitis once, okay, what are the chances that it's going to happen again?
I had it real bad. I bled for 5 days. I stayed in the hospital, and they gave me antibiotics, and it stopped. And I went to the the stomach doctor, and he didn't want to do surgery on account of my age. And this is what they told me: if it starts back, go to the nearest emergency room. So I'm wondering what my chances are of it starting back.
So you're talking about two different things. So diverticulitis is the infection itself. It sounds like what you had is not diverticulitis, but a diverticular bleed.
But that was my first time of ever even knowing anything about it. And I do drink water. I drank probably a quart or 2 quarts of water a day, and I've never been constipated.
Okay.
My
So,
whole life, I've never been constipated.
so if you have a diverticulum here, and the wall of the diverticulum is very thin, there are blood vessels that end at that point. If that is very thin, that blood vessel can start bleeding, and then you have something that we call a diverticular bleed, which means that the blood starts pouring out from the diverticulum in. So diverticulums can give you something called diverticulitis, which is the perforation that we talk about, or they can give you something called a diverticular bleed, which means that they don't perforate, but they start bleeding. If they start bleeding, chances are that it's going to stop on its own. What are the chances that it's going to bleed again? I can't tell you the chances. I know that it's not very high. Now, what are the things that can increase the risk of bleeding again is blood thinners. So if you go to the cardiologist, they put a cardiac stent, and they give you aspirin, Plavix, and Xarelto, and you already have a diverticular bleed, the chances of bleeding are much higher if you don't take any blood thinner. Make sense?
Assuming you've had a colonostomy, and it indicates some diverticulum, I believe you said the term was, and you've never been treated or had any bleeding, but what does the bloating and the gas come in? Or is that's not got anything to do with the diverticulum?
No, the diverticulum is not going to give you bloating or gas. Again, you got to take into account that our intestine, our GI tract goes from our mouth all the way down. There is about 21 feet from above to below. We can only look about 6 feet of colon because we can do a colonoscopy, put a camera here, go all the way around and come down here. Or we can put a camera over here and we'll be able to see the stomach and the first part of the intestine. But if you really think about it, there is a lot of intestine that we don't have access to. So where does the bloating, where does the diarrhea exactly are coming from? That's very hard to tell. So the best way to do it is to see what you're eating. Your intestine will react to the way you eat. The way you eat will change over time. So you can say, okay, when I was 15, I was able to eat cheeseburger, French fries, and pizza every day, and I never had a problem. That's not going to be like that your entire life. 2 years ago, you may have been able to drink milk. I never have a problem with milk. Well, now you don't tolerate milk. So you always got to pay attention to what you're eating. Make sure you eat things that are healthy and pay attention to the changes that your body will have over time. Gas, bloating, abdominal pain, cramping, those can be also resolved by paying attention to what you eat and seeing how your body is behaving towards that. Always make sure you go to your doctor. Always make sure you have a colonoscopy. It's very important. It can help detect cancer before it becomes something that is non-treatable. Okay?
Usually when I have it, I can tell like a day or so before it really flares up that I'm going to have it because my stomach, well, I was sitting in the doctor's office not long ago and couldn't even talk to him for my stomach, the noises my stomach would make. And my husband got up and left me in church one Sunday, on Easter Sunday, because my stomach made so much noise everybody in the church could hear it. And then the next day, I'm going to have the diverticulitis.
Diverticulitis or diarrhea?
Well, my colon starts getting really, really sore. And it gets so sore I can't hardly walk.
Yeah. So you may be having colitis, which is inflammation of the colon.
Well, not according to what all these colonoscopies I've had said.
So the fact that you have diverticulums does not mean that you can't have colitis.
Yeah, that's true.
Make sense? So exactly what's going on is impossible to tell.
But the noise is
So the noise comes from your intestine pushing fluid against air. So you have a ball of water that is coming through that encounters a bubble of air, and that's what creates the sound. It's not the motion of your intestine. What creates the sound is the mix of the water and air. How much air, ma'am, how much air your intestine will have depends on what you eat and how much you talk and whether you use a straw, how many sodas you eat. 80% of the gas that comes this way, we put it up here. When we chew, when we talk, sodas, gum, all those things will make you swallow air. So what you eat can aggravate your intestine. If you have irritable bowel, different things, it can get aggravated as well. So you really got to pay attention again. You got to really pay attention to what you're eating and how it's happening. You know when your problem is going to come. Pay attention to what you're doing prior to that comment. Is there an event that is giving you stress? Is there something that you ate? Or it's not related to anything? But you are the only person who can know that because you're the one getting it. Make sense?
When I was told I had diverticulitis, and my doctor put me on a stool softener, because I do get constipated. Can I take too much stool softener, or?
If you're taking a stool softener, you're having constant diarrhea, then that means that you're taking too much. But if you're taking a stool softener, it's making you have regular bowel function, and you're not having diarrhea, and you're having maybe once a day, then that's perfectly fine to continue to take it. Make sure you do drink your water, though.
I was told by a doctor here with my last one when I came to the doctor said to take Metamucil every day.
Yep.
And I've been doing that, a tablespoon in water.
Yeah. That's a good idea, yeah. Anything to help your bowels move if they are not moving. Makes sense what I'm saying? Anything to avoid constipation is a good thing. Okay?
But that's what he told me to do, is take Metamucil. I probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. And you all got to understand, constipation and not having bowel movements, it can carry a ton of problems throughout your entire life. So we for some reason, children believe that if you're going to have a bowel movement, you've got to hide because the world cannot know that you're having one. I think children need to understand that everybody in the world has bowel movements and that it's normal to have them, because especially, young girls, they hold it off and don't have bowel movement because they don't want to have a bowel movement in school. So that also, without them knowing it, they're teaching their bodies not to have a bowel movement.